everyone, my name is Liz. Welcome to my mid-year reading recap. I have a list of questions that we're going to go over. I got these from a variety of people online, so I'm not quite sure at this point who they all come from, and I kind of picked which ones I wanted to do. So let's just dive right in with just a couple of stats. I read 55 books so far this year. Most of those are fiction, but I have read 16 nonfiction books as well. That's a pretty typical ratio for me, usually somewhere between 25 to 30% of the books I read are nonfiction, so I always like mix those in. All right, so question number one is the best book I've read so far in 2024. I discovered Kristen Hanna this year, and I adore her. She's an amazing author. Every book I've read of her has been 5 stars, but my number one favorite has been The Nightingale. It's about 2 women who do kind of their own heroic things. They're sisters, and it takes place in German-occupied France. And it was just super interesting. I adored that book. I also have 2 more that I wanted to include because I also consider them like 6-star level, like go beyond the highest tier. And for me, that also is Project Hail Mary. That was such an interesting book. It's about a man who wakes up in a spacecraft with no memory, his amnesia, but he knows he's on like a mission to save Earth. And it's so fascinating. It ended up setting me on a path to be really into a bunch of things space related. So that was really interesting. Highly recommend that. And then also Remarkably Bright Creatures. This is such a cute book. Has I think it's an 80-year-old woman and an octopus's point of view. And it is just so interesting and heartwarming, and I just adored it. All right, next question. Best sequel I've read so far in 2024. This was Good Girl, Bad Blood. This is the second one in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I read that last year and really loved it. And yeah, this next one was also, I rated 5 stars. I adored it. This one follows a mystery in the town. The one thing I like about this series is that I feel like it's not like gross like some psychological thriller and mystery thrillers can be. It feels kind of like a true crime podcast that you're following along. Next question is new releases I haven't read yet but want to. The Woman by Kristen Hanna. This is one that I actually just got, so I'm really excited to dive into it, but I'm really excited to read this. It follows nurses in Vietnam War, and I'm so excited. And then I'm also really interested in reading Ministry of Time. I've heard this talked about online, and the concept of it sounds like something I would enjoy. So those are the 2 books I'm most excited to read. Next question is biggest surprise. And for me, Butcher and Blackbird was a surprise in that I really didn't like it. I feel like it was talked about very highly online. And so I had anticipated liking it, but I didn't. I found it really gross, and I ended up DNFing it about halfway through. And then another big surprise for me, I read Beartown this year, and the storyline, I just did not anticipate going where it went, and ended up being like very interesting, but it was definitely like, I didn't anticipate crying, and I was like crying throughout the whole book. Next questions, favorite new author, Kristen Hanna. Obviously this author's been around for a while, but she's new to me this year, and every book I've read so far, I've read 3 of her books so far, they've all been 5 stars. Nightingale I would consider like a 6 star for me even. Most of her books at least the ones I've read so far, have been historical fiction. And so she does tons of research too, so she infuses that into her books. So it feels like you're learning stuff as well, and you're really getting into the mindset of someone during that time. And so I adore her, and I'm looking forward to reading more of her books this year. Book that made you cry. That's the next question. I have so many books that make me cry. I am a crier. As I mentioned earlier, Beartown, I was crying like the whole entire book. I don't want to give it away because it was a surprise to me. I had never heard anyone kind of describe really the main premise of the book, and so I want to leave it that way for you guys as well. But that was the whole time. The Nightingale, I mean, it's a World War II book. I'm crying the entire time. I think every Kristen Hanna book I've cried reading. Oh, and Remarkably Bright Creatures, cried a lot during that one as well. Yeah, I think the books I tend to really like tend to be emotional, and so yeah, I've cried a lot during my favorites. All right, but I also like happy books, and so the next question is books that made me happy. And so I have 2 for this one. One is actually nonfiction book I read called Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. This is done by a Harvard researcher. He gives an overview of like all the latest research on longevity, and it's super interesting. He's a very optimistic guy, so that's why I think for me that made me happy reading that book. Also, I really enjoyed The People We Meet on Vacation. That is actually my favorite Emily Henry book I've read a number of them now, and I just adore it. It's a friends to lovers story, and it follows these friends that every year get together and go on a trip somewhere, and so you're also kind of getting like some travel fix, and I'm obsessed with travel. I actually have a whole separate YouTube channel on travel with my husband, which I'll link down below if you want to check it out. So anytime there's travel infused in a book, I'm gonna love it, and I love friends to lovers. So this was just like a perfect fusion of like some of the things I love. So I definitely really enjoyed that book. Next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And there's a lot of books like that for me. I know I want to read Kristen Hanna's Firefly and Lane, and of course The Woman, her most recent book that came out. I've been putting off Tomorrow, and I definitely want to read that as well. And then I'd like to continue with the Beartown series. I loved Beartown, I gave it 5 stars, and there are 2 more books in the series, and I'd like to finish those. Also this year I've been reading the Magnolia Park series, and I do think I want to finish off that series as well. Okay, next question is, what books do you want to reread this year? And for me, I have a couple. I want to reread All the Light We Cannot See. Apparently I read it a while ago, and I gave it 5 stars, but I don't have much of a recollection on the book, and there's a new TV series that just came out about it, and I think I'd like to reread that before I watch the TV series. And then I'd also really love, and I don't know if I'm gonna get to it this year, but I'd love to reread the ACOTAR series because I loved those. It would just be nice to experience that again. All right, next question is books I have been putting off. The Throne of Glass series. It is a long series. Each of those books are quite lengthy, and I know I kind of want to read it all in one go, I think, and so I've just been putting it off, but I'm hoping to tackle that this fall. I'm really excited for that because I loved the ACOTAR series. Next question is, a book I enjoyed with mixed reviews. And so I kind of just went through my Goodreads to see like what I rated really high but was rated kind of much lower. And The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry was rated in like the 3s, and I gave it like 4.5 or 4.75. I don't know what I gave it exactly, but I rated it really, really high. And so I was surprised by that. I really loved that one. Also, Same Time Next Summer didn't get as good reviews as I anticipated, but I adored that book. It's a cute rom-com that takes place. It kind of definitely has heavy beachy vibes, and there's also like a deeper meaning behind it as well, which I really enjoyed. So I was surprised that one didn't get as high reviews either, but I loved both of those books. Next question is series you want to finish by the end of the year. And so for me, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Beartown, and Magnolia Park series are the ones I really want to finish by the end of the year. Next question is 5-star predictions for the end of the year. I think anything Kristen Hanna writes, I'm gonna give 5 stars. She's just an amazing author. So that's my prediction, and I plan to read at least a few more of her books. Do I think I'll reach my reading goal is the next question. And yes, I do. I, for the first time ever, set down a reading goal. I always kind of had this philosophy that I didn't want to do that because I wanted reading to feel like downtime, and I was worried if I had a goal, I would feel like it's another thing I need to check off my list, which I tend to be a person who likes to check things off the list. And so I've been really hesitant about it, but I've just kind of naturally have been getting to that goal since I became kind of re-obsessed with reading this fall. So I think I'll get it. We're halfway through, and I have 55 books by the halfway mark. So I was 5 books ahead of schedule. So yeah, I think I'll probably continue reading at about the rate I've been, and I'll get to it. Another question is, any new goals for the rest of the year? So one of my goals is to read 3 classic books. I have read none so far this year, but I do plan to try to read 3 classic books. If you have any recommendations for which ones those should be, let me know in the comments. It's funny, I used to be really kind of into classic books in high school, and I used to read them like not for a class, I just read them for fun. So I feel like my teenage self was cooler than my current self because of that, but I'm hoping to bring that back and read a few classic books. Next question is, which books have you DNF'd? I DNF'd The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, I believe is the author. I just found this so cringy. I was actually listening to an audio, and my husband and I were kind of making fun of it together every time we heard it on. because it was just so bad. So I ended up like DNFing that like halfway through because I just couldn't handle the cringe. Another book I DNF'd was The Butcher and Blackbird. I just thought it was so gross. It's about two serial killers and it's supposed to be a romance, but it's really smutty and just gross to me. There's accidental cannibalism and all sorts of stuff in there. I did not care for it. So I DNF'd that. There were a few others I DNF'd after just like a short bit, so I'm not going to include that here, but those are the main ones. Okay, which books disappointed me most? I read a book that had the most beautiful title ever. So I had high hopes. It's called On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, and I thought I was going to really like this, but I found it like used really lyrical writing, but it felt like it was kind of forced. It didn't feel like it was actually flowy. Like I like lyrical writing normally, but this felt like it was, I don't know, like it was forced, and then it also didn't really understand the purpose of the book, so it felt like it was not a very substantive message it was trying to lead. So, and then the timelines were all over the place. I just didn't enjoy it. And then I also DNF'd, of course, Butcher and Blackbird, and everyone hyped that up so much online, so that was definitely a disappointing read. Another disappointing read for me was Powerless, which I know is controversial because people also seem to love that online. But to me, as a huge Hunger Games fan, it just felt like such a cheap knockoff that was just executed poorly without the really cool messaging that the Hunger Games has. So I really did not enjoy that, and I was disappointed in that as well. And I think that's it. That's all the questions I have. Let me know if you guys have similar reading interests than me. Let me know some ones you think I would enjoy to read by the end of the year. And if you haven't already, please give us a like and subscribe. It helps support my channel, and I'll see you on the next video.